Okay, I'm gonna be honest with you, man. I have no idea how long this video is going to be. We've made videos in the past talking about the playoffs and doing the predictions and everything, but those always take way too long to make because I make all the individual graphics and I make different playoff images of every series as it goes along, and I usually spend a few hours making those videos. So this time around, we're not doing that because it's going to be a little bit too time-consuming. Instead, we're going over onto NHL.com, or the bracketchallenge.nhl.com. I've got my bracket over here, Lego Rocks. What we're going to be doing is talking about the Stanley Cup Playoffs of 2022 and going over my picks as to who is going to win, who's going to take it home, and just go over each series holistically. Now, quick disclaimer, I'm not the smartest guy in the world. I know a lot of people think that I'm kind of smart because I like to portray myself as such. I'm not really all that. So, if I go out there and I say something that you don't like, then please comment in the comment section below what it is that I said that pissed you off, and we can discuss further why I'm wrong, etc., etc. But we have ourselves a whole bunch of playoff teams, a whole bunch of playoff series to go over, starting out with the Nashville Predators and the Colorado Avalanche in the Western Conference. Now, this was a strange one. For a long time yesterday, a lot of people thought it was going to be Nashville and Calgary, but the Predators ended up losing to the Arizona Coyotes. They blew a 4-goal lead. How about that? So instead, they have themselves the Avalanche in the first round. And if you take a look at the tail of the tape, I mean, the Predators had 97 points, the Avalanche had 119. I do think the Avalanche, look, they're going to be good this year. I'm going to go Colorado, and I'm going to say they're going to take it in 5 because Colorado is Colorado. And, you know, what else do I have to say? How do I change the amount of games? Can I say that right here? Here, full screen? Number of games, it's not letting me click on the number of games. I guess that's something that we'll do at the end here. But either way, you have yourselves a Colorado team that is just so stacked. I mean, they didn't have the best luck this year with injuries, so you don't have any 100-point scorers on this team, but still. Rantanen, McKinnon, Kadri, Makar, all these guys getting 80-plus points, over 82 points on the season, and then you still have point-per-game players, and Gabriel Landeskog over here. Devon Taves did his thing and was pretty good as well. This is a team that I think can go far. Unfortunately for Nashville, I mean, you do have Roman Josi, who just exploded this year, 96 points as a defenseman. It's just, I do feel like Colorado is good enough to say, okay, screw whatever Nashville has. We're just going to go out there and take it. It would be cool, though, if Matt Duchene and his 40-goal year was good enough to prove worthy to the Colorado Avalanche and take him out, but I'm just going to go Colorado in 5. Let's see if we can actually put the number of games in a little bit after. But next up, we have ourselves the Wild and the Blues. Minnesota and St. Louis, man, they finished in pretty similar standing this year, 111 points to 109. They had similar goals per game number, and it's actually the Blues who come away with the edge in the goals against. They had a significantly better goals against number. But when it comes to these two teams, it's tough to really predict because St. Louis, Minnesota is a classic series that we're just kind of seeing every few games in the Central Division, and then of course you have the odd playoff matchups once in a while. Minnesota, led by Kirill Kaprizov at 108 points this season. You also had Fiala and Zuccarello following shortly behind. These two had fantastic years based off of what we have seen historically for the Minnesota Wild. We already made a video talking about the Minnesota Wild and just how good these guys have been. But then you take a look at St. Louis and you see that Tarasenko still has that step. He's got himself such a good performance that, you know, it kind of feels like the old Tarasenko is back. It's just a matter of time before this guy hits 40 goals, is it not? But the rest of the Blues lineup has been good as well. You have 3 other 70-point scorers and a 60-point scorer and a few other 50-point scorers. So this is definitely a team that's got a good foundation and spread out scoring ability throughout its lineup. But, you know, just for the sake of it, I'm going to go out there and say that, you know, it's really going to boil down to defense, and I think Minnesota really did clamp down on their ability to adjust to certain teams. I'm going to go out there and say the Wild, and I don't really know how comfortable I feel saying that because this is going to be tight, but I'm going to say 7 games. Either way, though, I think the team that's going to win in this matchup here is going to be Colorado, so whatever it is, St. Louis or Minnesota, I do think Colorado is making the third round. I know I'm kind of cheating by going out there and putting the matchup right away, but I'm going to put it right there. Next up, you have yourselves the Pacific standings, and it starts out with Calgary versus Dallas. Now, Calgary was fantastic this season. 111 points, 3.58 goals per game. They were absolutely dominant in every sense of the word. And so if you go over to the Calgary Flames and you see just exactly what it was they did, not only do you see, 200-point scorers, Johnny Gaudreau, Matthew Tkachuk, you have Elias Lindholm, who had 82 points. He was a point per game on the year. Mangiapane had 35 goals. That's wild. You still have Blake Coleman, who was over here. He sort of revived his career, 16 goals over here. The thing that I wanted to focus on, though, was plus-minus. This team is so gosh darn good when it comes to their even-strength 5-on-5 play that you have Johnny Gaudreau, Elias Lindholm, and Matthew Tkachuk finishing the year off with plus 64, plus 61, and plus 57 ratings. These guys went out here and had seasons that were all so good that they matched Gretzky and Lemieux in terms of plus-minus from the 90s and 80s. So, how the heck is this even freaking possible that Johnny Gaudreau, Elias Lindholm, and Tkachuk all had such good standings? Well, it's because their defense is incredible, too. As we spoke about in a previous video, Chris Tanev and Oliver Shellington is one of the best defensive pairings in the entire NHL, and they both produce points, too. It's wild. Plus, you have Jacob Markstrom in net, whom I'm just such a big believer in. Calgary is going to win this series, and I'm sorry, Dallas, you guys were good. I do like the team that you have. You've got some great players. I do love Jason Robertson, of course, as a fellow Filipino over here. The guy got 40 goals, too. It's just, Dallas is such a one-line team, in my opinion, that you're really going to need to count your lucky stars if you want to have a chance at beating Calgary in a 7-game series. I'm going to go out there and say Calgary in 5. However, I cannot actually choose the number of games right now, so maybe that'll be something that we have towards the end. Next up, though, in the Pacific, it is Edmonton versus LA, and this is a really interesting one. We haven't seen Edmonton and LA since, I think it was the early 90s or whatever, but the Oilers are coming in here with a vengeance. The LA Kings are a lot better than a lot of people thought they would be this season. I'm honestly going to say it's Edmonton, mostly because I feel like the Oilers have been preparing for this for such a long time. Okay, here we go. How many games the series will last? Let's talk about that a little bit later. Let's talk about the Kings and the Oilers first and foremost. Because when it comes to Connor McDavid and the Oilers squad, they're just too good to hold down for another year, I feel. The same could be said about Toronto, but we're going to get to my thoughts on Toronto a little bit later. But when it comes to the LA Kings, I'm just kind of surprised that they were this good in the first place. They kind of took that playoff spot that a lot of people thought would be given up to the Vegas Golden Knights. But when you go over just who exactly is doing well in LA, I know we've made our videos talking about Philippe Deneau, we've talked about Quinton Byfield, we've talked about all these guys that are doing well. It's just, against Connor McDavid, I think it's going to be in Edmonton. Oh boy, do I want to say 5 games? Do I want to say a sweep? Oh, let's say 5 games. So we'll go back to the playoff round over here. I'm going to say 5 games for Colorado. I'm going to say 7 games for Minnesota. I'm going to say, did I say 5 games for here? Yeah, I'm going to say 5 games here as well. So 5 games. Ay, we're doing a lot of 5-game series over here. We're going to go over... Okay, look, let's just explain this one here first. Colorado, Minnesota, because I already said that Colorado was going to win. I just think they're that good. Minnesota probably does have the defensive capability to shut down a Colorado team, but for the sake of it, I'm just going to say Colorado makes the 3rd round, and they're going to get there in, let's say, 6 games against the Wild. You then have yourselves the Eastern Conference matchups. By the way, let's just go over here and close the tabs out that we are not using. Okay, St. Louis, we can close that one. Calgary, yeah, we're still going to keep the Flames page open. Dallas, sorry, we don't need you guys. Edmonton, LA, okay, and here we go. This is what we're starting out with on the east side of things. Florida, Washington. This is going to be pretty cool. Florida, President's Trophy winners. Washington, they're still going out there trying to keep Alex Ovechkin's hopes alive, but I think the Florida Panthers are going to take this one, man. They're just such a good team. They're so stacked everywhere. You can see the amount of production they're getting from the rest of their lineup. So many 20-goal guys, so many near 20-goal guys. They've got random guys who had 54 and 65 games played getting just under 50 points on the year. Okay, that was kind of disrespectful to Mason Marchment and Anton Lundell. You guys aren't random guys. You guys just are, in the grand scheme of things, not as important players as Huberdeau and Barkov. That's kind of what I mean when I say not important guys. Also, it's 9 a.m. in the morning when I'm recording this, so give me some slack. Sergei Bobrovsky has definitely bounced back. He's definitely good enough, I feel, to carry this team forward into the playoffs, and everything with Florida just spells playoff success. Of course, the game yesterday against Montreal probably wasn't that, but you sat everybody, you didn't play the goaltenders that you're going to play, so it makes sense to me that they went out there and lost the way they did to Montreal of all teams. Meanwhile, Washington, I mean, Ovechkin bouncing back 50 goals, 40 assists for 90 total points. What a great year this guy had. Obviously, we're all kind of paying attention at the beginning of the season. Oh, can he hit 60? Can he hit 55? But settling for 50 goals certainly isn't a bad thing, and when you have everybody else around you doing what they're doing, it definitely does make that easier to stomach. But for the sake of going out there and choosing a victor, I'm going to say Florida's going to take this one. And for the number of games, let's say 6 games, just to give Washington the benefit of the doubt. Going over onto Toronto and Tampa, though, this one's the best one, I feel, is going to be crazy to watch. Because I said last year that Tampa Bay was going to win. And they did. And I kind of feel like Tampa's going to go far again this season, too. Even though they're going up against a Toronto team that, as I said with Edmonton, for example, they've got a lot to prove. They've got so much talent up front. They've got so much to fight for that at what point do you go out there and say, okay, enough's enough, they're just not going to be held down anymore? Unfortunately, against Tampa, I don't think this is the series for them to go out there and win. I'm going to go out there and say Tampa, and I'm going to go out there and say 6 games. So when it comes to the Maple Leafs, it's so difficult to say that they're going to lose another series with all the talent they have. Obviously, Matthews 106 points, Marner 97 points, Nylander had 80, Tavares had 76, Riley had 68. You had so many good players on this team. Michael Bunting coming in here as a rookie, getting 20 goals, 63 points. This team is stacked, and we know Toronto is stacked, but can they exercise their demons and go up against a Tampa Bay team with another 100-point scorer in Steven Stamkos, a point-per-game defenseman in Victor Hedman, like the best Swedish defenseman season we've ever seen, Nikita Kucherov, who is out here with 69 points, that's a great number of points in 47 games. Braden Point honestly had somewhat of a down year. 58 points in 66 games. You could have expected this guy to hit 70 or 75 points with the talent that he possesses. Corey Perry was phenomenal this season with 19 goals. Like, the guy just turns it on in the playoffs too, so I'm going to be really interested in seeing where he goes in this year's postseason, especially against Toronto. We know he beat them last year, so I'm going to go out there and say Tampa, and I'm going to say 6 games. Like, I'm sorry, Toronto, but I do feel like Tampa is good enough to just say, screw you guys, we're going to take this over once more. Going over onto Carolina-Boston, and you take a look at the tail of the tape here. Carolina, a better goal-scoring team, a better defensive team, and you look at the roster of these guys and who has been scoring for them. The Hurricanes had production all over the lineup here. Sebastian Aho got 81 points, Andrei Svechnikov 69, so that's a good number right there. You have Tovo Teravainen, who had 65 points, Trocheck, who had 51. Who knows if he's going to stick around. Tony DeAngelo's making $1 million, and he got 51 points in 64 games. I know there was the entire culture attitude problem, and there's a reason he got bought out, and nobody went out there and claimed this guy on waivers, but this has been a good pickup for the Carolina Hurricanes in terms of adding talent to their lineup. Not to mention the fact that you still have your young guys here. Marty Necas doing his thing. Seth Jarvis has been a breath of fresh air for the Carolina Hurricanes. And then you go over onto the Boston side of things. This has pretty much been a one-line team the entire season. And, you know, I really don't think they're strong enough depth-wise to make it through an entire playoff run. I know that's their goal. They want to get Patrice Bergeron another Stanley Cup before he leaves, but I just don't think Boston has it in them this year to do that, especially in a first-round matchup against a Carolina team that is as strong as they have been. Plus the goaltending. I mean, Ranta and Anderson getting the Jennings Award this year, a .922 save percentage for Freddie and a .912 for Antti Ranta. These guys have it all. Carolina is such a good team up front and back in defense that it's going to be really difficult for Boston to match that, and I just really feel like Carolina's going to take this one. So let's say Carolina, and let's say, oh man, I've been saying it in 6 games the entire Eastern Conference. Let's say, for the sake of argument, let's say 5. Then you go over on a New York-Pittsburgh. This is probably the most interesting one, I feel. 108 points to 101. Goals per game is favored for Pittsburgh. Goals against per game favored for New York. All the analytical models say that New York is going to lose in the playoffs and they don't have any chances because they rely so much on goaltending. They still do have some talented point producers up front, though. Panarin, Zibanejad, Kreider. Obviously, Kreider getting 50 freaking goals is wild to me. Wild to everybody who's watching this team so far. Panarin getting 96, that's not a surprise. But then you take a look at the talent and the depth, whether or not it drops off. Ryan Strome at 54 points, and then everybody else. You have Gaudreau with 33, Lafreniere with 31. This team doesn't really have the strongest depth when it comes to their point production. It's just they have themselves a Vezina-caliber goaltender in Igor Shesterkin, who posted up one of the best save percentage seasons we have seen ever in 53 games played with a 9.35. Pittsburgh, on the other hand, they're fast, they're skilled, they've still got their main guys. They've got Guenther and Crosby at 80-plus seasons. You have Chris Letang, who almost got 70 this year. Then you still have Evgeny Malkin, who played a limited sample this year but was still over a point per game. And then you have that goaltending tandem of Tristan Jarry and Casey DeSmith. It's all going to boil down to goaltending, in my opinion, because both of these teams do have some upfront firepower that I think can stabilize each other. Actually, no, I think I'd give the edge slightly to Pittsburgh and their overall talent. But just for the sake of a good story, let's say New York, and let's say New York in 7, because I do feel like Igor is good enough to win at least a playoff series. It just so happens to be that Crosby and the Crosby and the Penguins, I can't believe I said the Caps, are the ones facing off against them in this first round. So let's go over and say 5. Let's say 5 here. Did I say 5 for Tampa Bay? No, I said 6 and 6. That's what I said, right. And then I said 5 for Carolina over Boston. So that's what my bracket is looking like so far. I'm pretty sure you can see that properly, right? Yeah, let's scroll down a little bit. Here we go. Yeah, that's what we were seeing. I already talked about Colorado, Minnesota. Let's talk about Calgary and Edmonton. Edmonton, you can't hold these guys down, right? But unfortunately, I think that Calgary is just too good that they're going to go out there and make the third round this season. For Florida, Tampa, I'm going to go out there and say that Tampa's going to take it again, mostly because I feel like Tampa just kind of has Florida's number when it comes to these playoff series. I know that could very easily be wrong, but I don't know, man. Tampa's just so good, and I said they were going to win last year, and they did, so I'm going to push for them to go far this season as well. You then have the Carolina-New York series, wherein it is a pretty well-rounded Carolina team against a New York defense. I do think that Carolina and their talent up front, as well as their talent down back, is going to overwhelm New York at some point. So I'm going to say they're making the third round over here. And this is what we have for the conferences. Colorado, Calgary, Tampa Bay, Carolina. I'm going to go out there and say that Colorado makes the Stanley Cup Finals. I really do think that Calgary is a great team. It's just Colorado is so overwhelmingly good that, oh man, it's tough for me to even say that. I'm kind of debating, did I make the right decision already by saying that? Oh man. You know what? Let's make things spicy. Let's make things really, really spicy and say that Calgary makes the Stanley Cup Finals against, oh boy. Do I want to say Tampa Bay? Do I want to say Calgary, Tampa Bay again? Aye. You know what? Screw it. Calgary versus Tampa is our Stanley Cup final. The reason I'm saying that is because in the conference finals over here, I do think that Calgary is a team that just gets better the longer you go on. You had this entire season where all the guys were doing Ironman streaks pretty much, and that's because of how good they are in staying alive and making sure they're continuing to play the right way, despite the fact that it's a long season and it could be a long playoff stretch. Calgary also has those physical guys that I think can really step up and make things difficult for the opponents when push comes to shove. Markstrom, all he's got to do is do his thing. The rest of the D-core, all they got to do is do their thing, and they can shut down, I think, whoever it is coming their way. Meanwhile, for Tampa Bay and Carolina, I am just such a big believer in Tampa that when the going gets tough and when it really comes down to crunch time, they get it done. Unless you're playing the Columbus Blue Jackets, you see Tampa go out there and dominate. So, when it comes to a final series of Calgary versus Tampa, do the Tampa Bay Lightning take on their third Stanley Cup in a row? Damn, I hate that I'm saying this, but no, it'll be Calgary who wins the Stanley Cup and the goals scored in the final series. Oh boy. Let's say it goes to 7 games. Let's say the average score is, let's say, 4-3, 4-2, so 6, 7-ish goals, 6, 12, 18, 24, 32, 38. Let's say the average goals that is scored per game is around there. So let's say total goals scored in the finals. I'm going to say 37. I'm going to take it down a notch because both Vasilevsky and Markstrom are good goaltenders. Actually, you know what? Screw that. Let's say 34, just because the goaltending can be really good right here. I've read the official terms and agreement. Yeah, okay. Calgary versus Tampa. It's tough to go out there and say that Tampa is going to lose, but I do think Calgary is so good that I think they might just be able to take it this year. Stanley Cup drought in Canada, is it going to come to an end here? Calgary had a chance to end it last time. I do think they're good enough to take it home this time. So, yeah, I think this is my bracket. Is this my bracket? What happens if I click submit? Saving picks. Congrats, your picks are in. Okay, there you go. So there's your bracket for Lego Rocks, talking about the 2022 Stanley Cup Playoffs. I normally make these videos in a different fashion where I be all formal with the commentary and I show all the stats, but nah, this time around I just kind of felt let's just make the bracket because this is going to take a lot less time editing. Yeah, I'm taking shortcuts, but it's a lot better for me because a few hours worth of editing versus one 20-minute video is not all too bad. Let me know in the comments what do you think about my picks and why you're pissed off about them, because there are going to be so many people pissed off about these picks. Let me know in the comments who you think is going to win the Stanley Cup. Instead, I'm going to have this all on the record here on YouTube just in case, so everybody who is going to go out there and talk to me in the streams, oh, Lego, come on, you can't say this. Yeah, no, I did say that in my bracket right here, so let me know in the comments all your thoughts and opinions about the 2022 Stanley Cup Playoffs. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.